Good morning, everyone. I really want to thank everyone for joining us here today. It's an exciting day in New York, but then every day in New York is an exciting day. So before we begin, I just want to acknowledge some of the important guests we have with us today. We have State Senator Brad Hoylman, whom you'll hear from in a little while. Same with Assemblymember Richard Gottfried. Vincent Alvarez, known as Vinny, president of the NYC Central Labor Council. Joe Azzopardi, business manager, DC 9 Painters, and I want to thank all the brothers and sisters from labor. I want to thank Maura Moynihan. Thank you very much, Maura, for being here. Thank you. Stephen Roth, Chairman and CEO of Vernado. Kathy Wild, President and CEO of the Partnership for NYC. And from the MTA, Pat Foy, President. Ron Hager, Managing Director. Jano Lieber, Chief Development Officer. Andy Byford, President of NYC Transit, the guy with the great accent. Phil Eng, President of the Long Island Railroad. And from the Governor's Administration, Robert Mejica, Budget Director. Howard Zemsky, President and CEO of Empire State Development. Kelly Cummings, who's Deputy Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor. And Lindsay Boylan, Deputy Secretary for Economic Development. Thank you all for being here today. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from Governor Cuomo, and then we look forward to hearing from our local state representatives, as I indicated. And I think some of you were on this morning's press tour, and there really is tremendous transformation in Penn Station becoming the new Moynihan Station. It's a very exciting day in New York City. This is a project that has been contemplated for decades, but thanks to the governor's vision and his dedication, it is getting done, and that's what this governor is all about. In addition to the others I mentioned, I also want to thank Mark Ricks from Vernado because he has been very instrumental. And of course, I'm very partial to community boards. If you follow the newspapers, I love community boards. And I want to thank Community Board 4 and Community Board 5. But being community boards, they have ideas about how the entire coordinated, holistic planning should be done. And I hope that we can work together to figure out how we can work on the Gateway and Penn Station and Moynihan Station and the bus station and figure out all the air rights issues as time goes on. And the community boards will play a big role. So this amazing Moynihan complex will be the beating heart of the entire region's transportation network. It will have tremendous economic impact for the city and for the neighborhood. And I want to thank again the governor for his leadership. I want to thank everyone in this room because you're all part of working tirelessly to turn this dream into reality. As the governor points out, there are more people going through this station than all of the airports combined. So it is my great pleasure to introduce the person whose vision has made it all possible, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Let's give a big round of applause to Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, who's doing a great job. My colleagues from Albany, Brad Hoylman and Dick Gottfried, you'll hear from in a moment. Let's give them a round of applause. Maura Moynihan, my great friend, it's a pleasure to have you here. God bless you. And to the MTA personnel and the ESD personnel and people from my staff, welcome all. This is about the progress we're making on a very important project in this city, this state, and how we take it a step even further. The issue is not a new one. Every president in modern history has made the same point that our transportation infrastructure is decaying, that it's an embarrassment, that it has to be changed. and that this nation is falling behind. They have all been exactly right. The problem is the follow-through, the action. You look in this state, you look at our infrastructure, and you know that we're being left behind. You get on a plane, you fly around the globe, land at any airport, and then land at LaGuardia, and nothing more needs to be said. So the idea is right, the vision is right, it's the getting it done, which is where we have fallen down. Federal government has never stepped up to the plate. The federal government is still failing to act. Our President Trump promised in the campaign that there would be a $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan. And I said at the time, great. I got criticized because I'm a member from the other party, but I said, look, a $1.5 trillion infrastructure is great for this nation, great for this state. As it turned out, the $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan never materialized. And it's now down to a few hundred million over a prolonged period of time. But we are New York, and we are not dependent on anyone, and we make our own future, and we are not waiting. This state is doing the most aggressive building program in the United States of America. No state is doing what we are doing, a $100 billion plan. And next term, good Lord willing, I want to take the $100 billion to $150 billion. And I want to thank our brothers and sisters in labor for doing a magnificent job. They're doing more public work than they've done probably in modern history. They're working weekends, they're working nights, they're doing a great job. Thank you, Vinny Alvarez and everyone who's here. And just to give you a quick glimpse of what we're doing, because you see one slice of it, but New Kosciuszko Bridge, New Goethals Bridge is up, the MTA, largest investment in history, the Subway Action Plan, New LaGuardia Airport is being built, New LaGuardia Air Train, New JFK, New Javits Convention Center, which will double the size. The Javits, when it was opened in 1984, was state-of-the-art. The other convention centers have grown. We're now going back and doubling the size of the Javits Center so we can compete with any convention center anywhere. That's underway as we speak. Cashless tolling is up and running. It's working extraordinarily well, saved all sorts of time and money. New Rochester Airport, new Elmira Corning Airport, new Syracuse Airport, new Plattsburgh Airport, new Ithaca Airport, $27 billion in roads and bridges across the state. Infrastructure of tomorrow. The green infrastructure, green technology, we're doing more to provide renewable energy than any state in the United States of America, and that is the economy of tomorrow. $1.4 billion investment, wind turbines, et cetera. And talk about the infrastructure of tomorrow. The transportation grid at one time brought this nation forward. The internet and access to the internet is what the road system was 50 years ago. This state is going to be the first state to have 100% high-speed broadband all across the state. And that is going to be the great equalizer. Because if you're studying for school or you're opening a business, you need access to high-speed internet. And this is why the issue with Charter Spectrum is so important, because a big part of this comes from the Charter Spectrum commitment. But I'm very excited about this, especially for underserved areas of the state, especially upstate New York. Our greatest challenge is building a new mass transit system. We have to get out of cars, we have to get out of the pollution. We can't continue to grow unless we have a mass transit system that can handle the volume. And the truth is amazingly simple. We have an outdated mass transit system. It was built at a different time for a different population. And we did not repair it and maintain it over the years. You know, we're constantly surprised when there's a delay or a problem on the subway system. These are 40-year-old cars. These are electric switches that are in some cases 100 years old, that were then doused with salt after Hurricane Sandy. Well, why do things break down? Because they're 40 years old. You drive a 40-year-old car to work, and you tell me your reliability. Why didn't we repair it over the decades? Because human nature, government nature, the first thing to always be removed is the maintenance and operation, is the replacement of old equipment. We have a mentality that we don't fix it till it's broke. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, it's broke. And it would have been smarter to be investing in it all along, but now we're at the point of crisis. And it's not that we don't know how to do it. We know how to do it. We know how to buy new cars. We know how to build new tracks. It's about the money, and it's about a continuing revenue source that provides the money to do what everybody in this city and state now knows what we have to do. Long Island Railroad is the same thing. You have 40-year-old power substations on the Long Island Railroad. They had a 20-year useful life. In some parts of the LIRR, there is one track. So if anything happens on that one track, it backs up everything. If a squirrel in the morning walks onto the track and, God forbid, has a heart attack, everything stops, everybody is 3 hours late for work. There has to be redundancy, and that's what's called the second track and the third track, and that's what we're doing now. LaGuardia Air Train, talked about for decades, long overdue. We're one of the only metropolitan areas that doesn't have a train from the airport, and that has to get done. And the Penn Station, Long Island Railroad, Amtrak complex has to be rethought, rebuilt, and it has to be done quickly. Penn is, as the borough president said, the most heavily trafficked transportation hub in the country. More people going through Penn than LaGuardia, JFK, Newark combined. Just think about that. Now, there was a brilliant idea to help the Penn situation about 30 years ago. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, God rest his soul, said there is a relatively straightforward answer. The senator who I had the good fortune to work with when I was in Washington and to know as a young man, loved transportation, loved infrastructure. He was an academic. The train tracks that run under Penn Station also run under the Farley Post Office. The Farley Post Office is that large, magnificent building right across the street, which was underutilized, and Senator Moynihan's idea was, you don't need this whole building for the post office anymore, let's turn it into a train station. Great idea. The tracks are underneath, you can make it a train station and access the tracks. That was about 30 years ago. And once again, we've been talking, we've been thinking, we've been cogitating, but we haven't been doing. And we're now getting to the doing phase. The Moynihan Train Hall Farley conversion is underway. There was a tour of it this morning. The construction is on schedule. It's going to be completed in 2020. It is going to be magnificent. It is going to have retail, concourse. It is going to be a beautiful state-of-the-art facility. It's also going to have one of the really special skylights that will have an architectural significance that's going to be breathtaking. It is on schedule. That's a shot of the facility now under construction, but you can see a tremendous amount has been done. The escalators to the platform are already going in. The skylight, which is really the construction art form on this project, is being built. The skylight, you can see, is in the middle of the building there, under those trusses, and that's where the skylight will be built, which will provide natural light for the whole train station. The skylight was originally built in the post office because they were sorting mail, and they needed light to sort the mail. So the entire ceiling was a skylight letting the sunlight in so they could actually read what they were doing when they were sorting the mail. And now it's just a brilliant design feature. When you put Penn Station together with Moynihan, it is going to be a world-class facility. But we're not going to wait for the completion of Moynihan. The truth is Penn Station needs upgrades and needs it now. From a safety, security, and circulation point of view, it needs immediate attention. The volumes have increased. You have to remember these systems were designed at a different time. The subway system, the LIRR, Penn, they were built for a much smaller population. We have now doubled, sometimes tripled the volume going through these facilities, and it just can't manage it. And that is the congestion problem. It's a commuter's nightmare. It is also a safety concern. This is a high concentration of people in a relatively small space, underground. We live in a new and frightening world. Terrorism is a real threat, as anybody who lives in New York City knows. And it's one of the main priorities in my position is to be constantly thinking ahead and eliminating points of vulnerability. We want to make sure that people can get in and out of Penn quickly, especially considering the numbers that we're talking about. So simultaneous with the Farley construction and the Moynihan Station construction, we're going to start to build a new Long Island Railroad facility. The Long Island Railroad facility will be on the north side of the Penn Moynihan complex, okay? You also have Amtrak in Penn and New Jersey Transit in Penn. They're more on the southern side of the facility. The north side is the Long Island Railroad facility. But it runs the full length of from 2 Penn right to the end of Moynihan Station. Right now, you have several entrances into Penn. Those are the blue arrows. But they're not enough. They're small. They cause congestion, and they are, from a security point of view, in our opinion, not enough to allow quick evacuation of the facility or convenient entrance. We would add additional entrances where you see the orange arrows. The concourse itself would be widened to about 60 feet. Right now it's very narrow and low. I said you get the feeling that you're in the catacombs. Amtrak doesn't like when I say that, so I won't say it. But it's narrow, it's a very low ceiling, in some places only 7 feet. It adds to a feeling of claustrophobia. When you're in there with thousands of other people, you really feel constrained, and you really feel that it's at a minimum not a comfortable experience. Double the width of the concourse, raise the ceiling height to 18 feet, so it's bigger, it's more open, there's more flow, more passenger conveniences, more light, where you can actually see the tracks from the concourse. You can see when your train is coming. You don't have to go down and stand on the platform. You can actually stay in the concourse. This is a cross-section of what it would look like. But again, no bottlenecks and easy access. Part of the proposal is to create a permanent closure of the 33rd Street block, which is now temporarily closed, close it to mid-block to make it a pedestrian public space, and use it as an open space, and to put a new large entrance to the Long Island Railroad, Amtrak, and subway facility at the entrance to where 33rd Street is now, with the public space behind it. It would be 3 escalators, an additional staircase. It would allow thousands of people easy access. You don't have to go through to Penn. You don't have to go through Madison Square Garden. You don't have to run any gauntlet. It's right on the street. You can walk right in. It would also work in tandem with the pedestrian plaza, the public plaza. It would be open, visible. It would have a covering on it that can be designed any number of ways. My forte is not design and art, as many people would attest. So we have a number of design options that you could actually have for the opening that we will consider as we go forward with the project, but you get the idea. It would be open, it would protect the entranceway. The entranceway itself will also bring much more natural light down into Penn and down into the Concourse. This is another design option. This is Howard Zemsky's design option. Looks like an ice cream cone sliced in half. I really don't like that option now that I think about it. Sorry, Howard. I don't know whose option this is, but this one is Howard's on steroids. But we'll come up with a design for the facade. Next steps, how does it happen? Farley Moynihan is going ahead, full speed ahead. We're on it every day. It's on track to finish 2020. We'll begin immediately planning the Long Island Railroad facility, the design, and the timing of it. That will be expedited. We'll design the new Long Island Railroad subway entrance from an engineering perspective, plus the facade that goes on top of it. ESD, which is currently managing Farley and 2 Penn, will be the project manager. Financing will be provided by New York State in the budget we adopt next year. MTA will work with ESD on the transportation issues. All construction will be design build. The construction timetable will be coordinated to hopefully open when Farley Moynihan opens. At the same time, ESD is going to undertake a larger surrounding neighborhood improvement planning process in consultation with the stakeholders in New York City. This is what the borough president was referring to. We are focusing, for obvious reasons, on Penn and on Moynihan. This plan also does the pedestrian plaza on 33rd Street. Borough president's point is the neighborhood wants a larger reuse plan that not only does Penn and Farley, but also the surrounding areas. And that is a project plan that ESD will undertake forthwith, doing it in concert with the community boards that I love too, we all love, and all stakeholders to come up with a neighborhood-wide plan. But that will be a separate track from what we're doing here. The cost is the cost of construction of the entrance, 3 escalators and a stairway down. Cost of acquisition of the tenants' rights on the current Long Island Railroad Concourse. Right now on the Concourse you have retail stores. If we do the construction, they will have to be bought out through one mechanism or another. Cost of improvements on the Concourse. ESD has to tally that up, get it to us by January so we can submit it in the budget, which will be submitted late January. That is plenty of time. Some may say, well, that's a relatively short period of time, but Nobody at ESD would say that, I can assure you. That gives you 2 months, plenty of time. Or I will figure it out for you, Howard. Next steps, long-term 2020. Farley Moynihan opens, Amtrak and LIRR move into Farley Moynihan. Little note of history. The first plan was that once Moynihan was finished, Amtrak would move into Moynihan and the Long Island Railroad would stay in the old Penn Station. That made no sense to us. So we renegotiated. Amtrak and the Long Island Railroad will move into the new Moynihan facility. That will then free up the remainder of Penn Station. Because remember, this plan does the Long Island Railroad portion. It does not do the Amtrak portion and the New Jersey Transit portion. Once Amtrak moves into Moynihan, we can then redo all of Penn. That, in my opinion, should be coordinated with the completion of the Gateway project. We have to do the Gateway project. We have worked on the Gateway project for years. We had an agreement with the Obama administration, right down to the funding. It has been stopped. It's been stopped for political reasons. There is no bona fide policy or government reason why this federal government is not going forward. And they are flirting with disaster. Again, those tunnels are like the MTA, like the Long Island Railroad. They are decades past their useful life. Decades. They then took on extraordinary damage after Hurricane Sandy. And it is a long time period. If you said go today to replace those tunnels, you're talking years and years and years before you would actually get it done, no matter how we expedite it. We learned the lesson with the MTA. We learned it with the Long Island Railroad. Don't wait for the tunnels to fail before you start to replace them. It would paralyze the Northeast. Part of that Gateway project needs to be the redoing of the rest of Penn. And it fits perfectly with the Gateway project. It would be bringing in more trains, and we can redo the south side of Penn as part of the Gateway project, hopefully by 2020, when Farley is opening and we're making the major move, Gateway will be in a position to come in and make that renovation. So, long story short, we're not waiting for the federal government. We're not waiting for the $1.5 trillion. We're not waiting for anyone. We never have, we never will. New York is the state that leads in whatever it is, in social issues, economic issues, women's rights issues. New York leads. We also lead in terms of construction. We built things that everybody else said couldn't be built, and then everybody else follows. We're going to do it again. We're going to show this nation how to build a state that is the epitome of the infrastructure and transportation for the next century. And we're making it happen. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Governor. That's a very, very exciting for the local community, for the regional community, for our economy. It's really astonishing when you think about the fact that 650,000 people a day come into Penn Station. That's more than the population of Boston, Seattle, or Denver. So this is much needed, and I'm very grateful. I'm also very grateful, Governor, for your attention to the local community, which the borough president pointed out. You know, I was last month at dinner with my in-laws, and I got a phone call. I picked it up, and it's the governor. So I say to my mother-in-law, "It's the governor. I have to go." And thank you for impressing my mother-in-law. But secondly, thank you for calling, because the governor was calling about reaching out to our local community boards about this very project. And that's so important as we move forward, that you have that local input. So I'm very, very thrilled to work in partnership with labor, the business community, our local elected officials, Fernando, and the MTA, New York City Transit, as we move forward. And Maura, I'm convinced more than ever that your father is going to be proud of the new Moynihan Station. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Assembly Member Dick Godfrey.
Well, good morning. You know, New Yorkers are kind of funny people. Yesterday, a constituent stopped me on the street, wanted to know, what are you going to do about Times Square? And so I said, you know, years ago, I would have known what he was talking about. I said, what is it about Times Square you want something done about? And he, in almost so many words, said, you know, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. And I said, well, yeah, but, you know, they leave a lot of money here and pay a lot of sales tax. And, you know, I was thinking about today's announcement. Not a whole lot of my constituents on a daily basis, or Brad's, use the Long Island Railroad. But Penn Station and Long Island Railroad and good access to the subway underneath us here is crucially important to the vitality of the New York, of the Manhattan Business District, or Manhattan Business Districts, plural. Because we've got, I mean, some cities have a business district. Manhattan has, what, a dozen of them. This is what makes the economy of this city viable. This is what creates a city where my constituents who don't go out to Long Island on the railroad make a living and have taxes paid that can pave streets and provide the fire department and public schools and healthcare. This is what makes the city work. And projects like this and all the other things that Governor Cuomo is talking about are vital to making this city work. And I just want to thank the governor and the MTA and Vornado and all of them for working with community boards 4 and 5. You know, good things happen when you work hand in hand with our community boards. We're doing terrific stuff here. We're going to keep doing it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,